Fuse. Release. Get shoot. Yes. Get cane. Yes. Good boy. This is Fuse. He's 2.5. And he's going to help me and guide me through the next 10 plus years, I hope. He's been well trained. He knows over 65 cues, but he can even put bottles in the trash. He can pull a laundry basket to a washing machine and put the wash in the machine. He opens doors, gets me out of the house, okay? Keeps my mind occupied. Never stops watching me.
It's not hard to understand that dogs can just be therapeutic. You know, when fingers meet fur, something magic happens.
You've heard the sayings like, hey, you can put your dog in the trunk of your car and drive down a 5-mile bumpy road all day long, open that trunk, and he'd just be so happy to see you that this is the greatest day of his life. That personality, that connection that you have with a canine, that relationship's like, okay, hey, look, you're gonna help me, I'm gonna help you, and we're gonna help each other.
I've seen the remarkable relationship between a warrior and a dog can have. The love that the animals have for their owner or their service member, you know, can be life-changing. And that's why we support it.
That's their lifeline. That is what gets them up in the morning. That's what gets them out of the house. That's what gets them laying in bed and resting. And so I do think our service dogs are exquisitely important to our veterans.
It's funny, I said to my wife, I said, now I have to outlive the dog. Because, you know, anyone that's served during the Vietnam era, they're in their 70s now. We have done a lot of training this last 2 weeks. And I think he's a little tired from today. It's myself and 4 other veterans, but the service dogs will make their lives so much easier. They're a constant companion that is helping you all the time, but giving you all the love that a lot of veterans are in need of. They also give a lot of hope.
I'm so glad to see you guys here. Welcome to our first general meeting of the spring 2025 semester.
My name is Deanna Hafley. I'm the president of Patriot Paws of Aggieland, and I'm a student here at Texas A&M University. Patriot Paws raises and trains service dogs for disabled veterans at no cost to them. So the students at Texas A&M go through a semester-long training. There they learn how to work with the dogs and how to teach the dogs different cues. We train these dogs for mobility and PTS. Can your dog save a veteran's life? That's kind of the thing that we kind of put in our heads. For myself, you know, having to balance dogs and school and all that can be really difficult, but really understanding the impact that these dogs have, that's where my head always goes. And then also knowing that these dogs have to leave me at some point, and that can be really, really hard for the majority of our students. But this dog isn't for me. They're for someone who's really given the ultimate sacrifice to fight for our country.
Texas A&M Aggies have a long tradition of standing with veterans. Training and providing service dogs is an example of that support. But one student, a veteran himself, took that tradition to the next level.
Veteran and Executive Director of Mission Roll Call, Cole Lyle, joins us now.
Cole Lyle, thank you for joining us.
Please welcome to the show, Cole Lyle.
I didn't really intend to make veteran advocacy my career, but there was a lot of fulfillment that I got from helping other people that went through the same thing that I had gone through get out of what they were going through. My military experience honestly wasn't that unusual from a lot of other people's. I joined in 2008 when I turned 18 and got on-the-job trained as a military tow truck operator in Afghanistan.
All right, so we're sitting here on the range, waiting to shoot in a sandstorm.
I didn't see, much combat, to be frank, but I volunteered a lot of time at the Bastion Trauma Center in Helmand Province. And, there were specific individuals, kids, right? And I think in large part, the reason I had a lot of problems with it was because it really made me question, what are we doing here? Here's this 6-7-year-old boy bleeding out on a trauma center operating table. And here I am holding his hand, feeling the life go out of him, and thinking to myself, what could he have been, right? In a different world. Such a young kid. It's just such a needless, wasteful loss of innocence. Even one is, in my mind, too many.
When Cole got out of the military, he began experiencing anxiety and panic attacks. With nowhere else to go, he turned to the VA.
The VA's typical response when you say that you're having these issues is either pills or therapy. I tried therapy and it didn't really help much, but then they prescribed me some antidepressants. And those made my issues worse. The nightmares I was experiencing got more frequent and more violent. Was having anxiety attacks and really just was looking for another way out. So one night in 2014, I found myself about, that far away from becoming a veteran suicide. And I don't know, I just felt like my world was shrinking. The next morning, I can't really explain this at all, but I woke up just completely clear. And my mindset shifted from, I have nothing, to I have the opportunity to do anything. So I decided to go back to school, but I still needed to find a way to help out with symptoms of post-traumatic stress that didn't involve taking pills. So I ended up getting a German Shepherd named Kaya, trained as a service dog, paid about $10,000 of my own money for her, and she was tremendously helpful.
There's so many issues that live inside the veteran community, and suicide rate is the number one issue for me. We don't have the answer of why this rate is so high. What we do currently is we provide tools for a toolbox. And the more tools that we can provide, hopefully, the greater the chance is that we decrease symptomatic issues and increase quality of life. Then the SAVES Act, providing service animals to our veterans, that's an easy fit.
We talk about it a lot, but 22 veterans a day commit suicide. And so having a veteran feel like they are not worth anything because of what they've gone through, and society doesn't acknowledge that or even want to help them, that's really, really hard. And even in their darkest moments, having someone there, having their dog there with them, if there's no one else, that's pretty big. And these dogs are able to, just maybe put their head on their lap, just tell them, I'm here, like it's okay, like you're worth something.
Do you want the ball or you want this deed?
There's a remarkable transition that happens when you provide these beautiful animals, to somebody who's struggling, with their own self-confidence, their own shame, the trauma of, living through what they lived through, the guilt of surviving it when somebody didn't. And sometimes it's almost impossible to recognize the signs. If you can't see, an injury on somebody or a wound, you wouldn't know that you were supposed to treat it. Yet these things are happening all the time. I think one of the most important factors in trying to address that problem is not left up to the therapists or, the hospitals or the organizations, but it's battle buddies. Because these relationships between a warrior and a dog, they go everywhere together, So they develop this bond, and the dog has such a protective, spirit for, their battle buddy.
They are so in tune to their feelings that they can kind of help pull them out of things that their colleagues and their friends simply can't touch. They go into the deep holes with them that our friends we don't want to show the ugly to. And I think veterans will allow their service dogs in places that they won't allow their friends and their colleagues into. So I do think that they are incredibly, incredibly beneficial. That's why Cole is so passionate about what he does. He saw firsthand how Kaya pulled him out of a deep, dark hole, and he wanted to make sure that every military veteran who could and needed one could get one.
After choosing Texas A&M for its strong reputation of supporting veterans, Cole began studying foreign policy at the Bush School. And his studies led him and Kaya to an internship in Washington, D.C.
Well, Texas A&M took care of both of us. And we had a routine because I was taking 20-hour semesters, so people would get to know Kaya, like say hi to her, and she just became kind of a little celebrity in the circle on campus. And the university, they didn't know this at the time, but I was doing work to try to write and then get a member of Congress to sponsor what became known as the PAWS Act, the Puppies Assisting Wounded Service Members Act. And I remember there was one particular instance where I walked into a member of Congress's office, and you could tell that she had had like a really tough day. And she said, "You don't even have to try to convince me. I'm gonna sponsor your bill. Can I just cuddle with your dog for 5 or 10 minutes?" And, like, what do you say in that moment? I'm like, okay, that's fine. So she was just a really great ambassador for that. And that is what prompted me to go back and actually draft the first iteration of what became the PAWS Act. Because if she's willing to listen, other people will be willing to listen.
Now there's a new law that'll make it easier for veterans suffering from PTSD to get a service dog.
President Biden signed the PAWS Act into law. It calls for the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to start a program that will give veterans the funds to get a service dog.
When it actually started getting national attention, people started to believe this was a serious effort. And I had people offering to help. They said, "Hey, what can we do? And I didn't have a foundation or anything set up. And I was still kind of a broke college student, right? And occasionally Kaya would get sick. I think one time she ate something she shouldn't have. So I had to take her in and have them, x-ray to make sure that it was all good. And I didn't have, money for that. But I met Gary Sinise, and he had met Kaya and loved Kaya. And so he would occasionally cover the cost of Kaya's veterinary care.
You know, we talk about the service animal, of course, but then there are all the different things that go along with protecting that animal. Making sure that services are provided not only for the service member, but for the dog. There's the care that the animal may need to be in for the long haul. And it's something that I didn't really think about until it came up. And so that's why we continue to support the broad spectrum of services that go along with these various programs at the Gary Sinise Foundation.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, I'm Dr. Edwards. How are you?
Compassionate care funds allow for a client who may not have the financial means to completely go all the way with their pet's care, bridge that just a little bit. I think Gary Sinise heard about what we were doing down here and wanted to figure out how he could be part of that, how he could give specifically to veterans who needed care for their animals. And there's been sustained funding from the Sinise Foundation for this. So we're very privileged to have that level of support for so long.
While these funds help make sure that service dogs are cared for, the biggest expense by far is the cost of raising and training the dog, which can run into the tens of thousands of dollars.
It's over $40,000 from food to medical bills to just training equipment, their vest, all the stuff that they're gonna need while they're in training 18 months to 2 years. All these things add up. And if you were in need of a dog, if you have a prosthetic or wheelchair or PTS, and what was holding you back from having your life back was money, that would be very, very difficult. Their medical tools, they're helping them with their struggles, so it's very important to see them go at no cost.
I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today.
The PAWS Act stands for the Puppies Assisting Wounded Service Members Act. And that was the first iteration that provided grant funding directly to organizations like Patriot Paws. But the reality is less than 1% of bills that get introduced in Congress ever get signed into law. And I didn't have any sort of institutional support behind me. Like, to me, it was just a good idea that nobody else was doing and needed to be done. I think that's why I've stayed in this kind of path, because it is fulfilling.
Cole spent the next several years lobbying on Capitol Hill to get the PAWS Act passed. And during that time, Kaya aged.
When I graduated, I moved to DC and started working in DC for years on veteran policy and advocacy. And ultimately, you know, the PAWS Act passed in 2021, which was great, but Kaya got sick in 2023. After the surgery, she had started to deteriorate pretty rapidly. So I had to make that decision, which was difficult, but I didn't want her to be in pain and suffer after all the pain and suffering that she had stopped. But I wanted her to come back to Texas one last time.
After a lifetime of hard work, Southwest Airlines is honoring someone they called one of their most loyal friends and heroes.
We have a special guest on today's flight. Kaya is a German Shepherd service dog who's been with her handler Cole since 2014. She was specifically trained to help veterans cope with mental health issues. She was the inspiration for the PAWS Act. It's a federal law that allows the VA to find service dogs for veterans with post-traumatic stress, which was signed into law in 2021. Sadly, Kaya was recently diagnosed with an untreatable cancer, so we have the solemn honor of taking her on what will be her last flight. As she goes home to rest where she was born and first met Cole. If you have the opportunity and feel so inclined, feel free to search for her story. On behalf of Southwest Airlines, the two veterans up front, we thank both Kaya and Cole, a Marine Corps veteran, for their service.
Cole reached out. He did not want her put to sleep. where he was. He wanted us to do it. I immediately called him and said, "When will you be here? We'll be here for you." It was clear to me that Cole had made a good decision for Kaya. It was definitely time. They spent the last couple of days on campus, and him taking her around to different parts of the campus that were important to both of them while they were here. And then his last stop was here with us.
It is my honor and my privilege to be the first to be able to welcome you to Patriot Paul's 2025 winter graduation. So thank you all for being here and showing your support.
So the graduation and the matching process for our veterans and our dogs is really something that's special. Day one, we have all the dogs out. We typically have double the amount of dogs than we do veterans because every dog is going to work differently for different people. And we let each dog go see the veteran. So that's the very first thing, and it's called just socialization, just dogs to veterans, seeing how they act. And then they jump right into classes. So they learn what our puppy raisers learn over a semester in 2 weeks.
The dogs are fully trained. Actually, the veteran has to be trained. In my case, I had to be retrained. You know, as they say in the mission statement with Patriot Paws is, once you have a dog, you're part of their family. And they sure have taken care of us. Never had a want or a need that they couldn't help or answer, especially for training. They even helped me through the end of life for my first service dog. And I'm looking forward to the future.
He's happy to be here. This is Fuse. He's getting ready to go with his veteran. He's 2 years old. He's pretty much at the end of his training, and he's one of the best dogs I've ever worked with. So I've been able to see him with other raisers as a puppy, and then getting to have him as this big guy has been really, really cool. And he's a very special dog, so he's gonna make his veteran very, very happy.
Don is not surprised because he's been working with this dog for a few weeks now. This is Don's second dog. It's Fuse.
The nonprofit world is in existence because there's an absence at a certain level to treat that issue. And so with the 40,000 VSOs that are inside the state of Texas and the Gary Sinise Foundation, again, that partnership, public and private, is very important. The SAVES Act provides $50 million to the Department of Veterans Affairs to provide nonprofits that have service animals for veterans. The PAWS Act was a study, so we have taken that next step. So now it's in language. It is signed and sealed, and a very valuable asset and tool for our veterans in need.
Morgan Luttrell recognizes the value and recognizes the importance of giving nonprofit organizations like Patriot Paws the direct funding to help train these dogs for veterans, which is why Congressman Luttrell introduced the SAVES Act, which is essentially like PAWS Act 2.0, which goes back and does what the original PAWS Act wanted to do, which again, I think is the right move. You know, after Kaya died, it took me a long time to grieve, to mourn, to get back to a place where I could get another dog. I couldn't bring myself to get another German Shepherd, but I don't need another service dog. I don't really have anxiety attacks or nightmares anymore. So I got Clementine, who's at my feet, and I'm gonna have her trained as a therapy dog to go into VA hospitals to try to bring some good cheer, because Goldens are just so happy. They're just happy dogs, you know, little balls of energy. And after Kaya passed away, I wanted to find out something I could do that was a long-term way of honoring her memory and her legacy. There was a problem that I had dealt with. You know, Gary Sinise had covered the cost of her veterinary care a couple times, but that's not common amongst veterans. And I don't want these dogs that are supposed to be a lifeline for veterans to become an additional financial burden. So I set up Kaya's Canines and straight up cover the cost of veterinary care for veteran service dogs who need it. And a great way to honor Kaya's legacy, which is keeping more of these dogs in the fight, helping veterans.
Here's the thing about veterans. We have a very serious problem. We know that. Mental wellness is just an ongoing issue. And I think the guys who are in the trenches together, they're going to make the biggest impact on somebody who is going through a tough time, you know. And then they can say, here, there are these services that are provided. We can set you up. You know, there are service dogs available to you. And here's what the service dog has done for me. It's changed my life completely. All these things can be a benefit, you know, to somebody who's really going through a lot of challenge.
Cole was a force to be reckoned with. He had a lot of passion for what he was doing, and he saw firsthand how Kaya pulled him out of a deep, dark hole. And he wanted to make sure that every military veteran who could and needed one could get one. And he was unstoppable.
To have a person like Cole come to Texas A&M and be a voice for veterans is really, really special. I think a lot of times veterans feel closed off. Having someone like Cole be there and, you know, maybe let a veteran know, like, you are worthy of this service dog, or you are worthy of this resource that's really going to be able to help change your life. Don't think you're not worthy of it because your wounds are invisible.